G'day everyone, welcome back to another edition of Guvs Hero Review videos. Today we are continuing in our Season 2 series, today looking at the 5-star legendary green hero, Whack, the Neon City Headbasher. So Whack is available, as we see there, from the Neon City portal, which rolls around once every 4 weeks. Whack has been in the game for a little bit now, being added back in April 2023, part of SGG's ongoing drip feed of new heroes into existing seasonal or season portals. It's a strategy they've used for quite a long time, both in Empires and Puzzles, and also in PuzzleCombat. It keeps you summoning in existing portals month on month. In terms of the portal itself, we can see there the odds. So we do have a 1% chance for a legendary featured hero and a 0.6% chance for a legendary non-featured hero. So to put that in perspective, if you were to come to this portal, do 100 summons costing you 30,000 gold, you would have just a 63.3% chance of getting one of the 2 featured heroes and a 45.2% probability of getting an unfeatured hero. So if those are just general odds as well, I will point out they are not the specific odds. For those specific odds, you would have to take the percentages and divide them by the number of heroes in that category. So in the featured heroes, it drops from 1% down to 0.5% because there's 2 featured heroes. And in the unfeatured portal, well, there's a lot of options in the game now. So those odds do drop off considerably. Flipping over, and we can take a look at Whack's artwork. I was lucky enough to jag a copy recently, but this is his artwork. So he is the Headbasher. So I guess he's got the headbang attire going on with the pointy leather jacket with the studs on it, and you know, he's also got the double spiked or studded mace, I guess, or clubs. So that's kind of what he's got. He's gone in for a headbang or a head bash, and yeah, he's loving life. Look at him go. He looks so happy. But yeah, that's his artwork. Feel free to pause it if you wish. Otherwise, we're going to head back to the portal and do some scrolling. So when we find it, we'll talk about his family bonus. So Whack is a member of the Hacker family, which is one of the better families in my opinion, because what it does is it gives him the chance to deflect status ailments from the caster, from an enemy hero back to them when they use them from their special skills. So it does equate to being a 15, 20, 25 or 30% chance to deflect those ailments when there are 2, 3, 4 or 5 unique members of the Hacker family in battle. We can see there that there is also the charge generation bonus, so he gains a 3, 5, 8 or 13% bonus charge generation when there are the same number of Hacker families in a battle. So really cool effect, very, very powerful, good in a lot of different ways, but it does have to be unique heroes. So it can't be 2 copies of Whack in a fight, it's got to be 2 different heroes, like comboing Whack with Mare Vanaya or with Sapphire as 2 different examples. In terms of his personal stats, Whack comes in with 808 attack, 677 defense, and 1,490 HP. So we do see there that there is a little bit of a skew going from that defense stat towards the attack stat. It is fairly considerable, I guess, in the scheme of things, about a 50-point skew. So that is kind of where his stats are sort of aligning. I will point out as well, his power is a little bit reduced compared to some of the newest heroes. So we've got ones like Topaz, who comes in with 742. So all that means is that Whack's total stat distribution is a little bit reduced compared to Topaz. But Whack is still considerably better than a lot of the other heroes that are older than him in the game with his stat distribution. So a little bit reduced compared to new, but drastically ahead compared to some of the old heroes. Why did we go off that, Gov? I needed to keep talking to that card. So his special skill speed is set to 60 speed, which is fast speed, which I'll show as soon as I find him again. There we are. Sorry, apologies about that. 60 speed, which is needing 9 tiles to charge or 5 ghosted tiles. The speed break does come at +5, so we've got to get up to 65 speed. So you can only do that using the +6 Trailblazer SVK, which is, interestingly, the only speed gun available in green. So that gun can give you up to +6. The double break does need +12, which you can't achieve. Even if there was a +9 speed gun in the game, a +9 speed gun in the game, it's still too far. Even No, actually, with the 4% class node, it would be possible, but we don't have a +9 speed gun, so it doesn't make a difference. So ultimately, the class node is of little relevance in the scheme of things because, yeah, we don't have a big enough gun available in the game. Which is a relief, I might add, because the class node is at +20 on his talent tree. So on the topic of class, Whack is a member of the support class, which grants him the chance to withstand negative effects and charge cut effects. So very decent perk, particularly a chance to withstand charge cutting effects, such as what you get from Dragon Fist or Eiko, combined with the negative status ailment resistance, and it can pretty much give you blanket coverage against charge control. There's the chance to withstand ailments and the chance to withstand charge cuts. So very good class. It's kind of like an inverse of the recon talent. So on recon talent, you avoid the damage but take the ailments. Here, you would take the damage but avoid the ailments or withstand the ailments. So nice little talent, very, very useful if you can chuck at least a couple emblems on him just to activate that chance. In terms of an actual emblem path, there is an argument that could be made to go in either direction with Whack. You can either go for more damage, so pick up the attack nodes to give you a greater damage output. So that sort of looks like what I've started here on Amethyst. So we are picking up each of the nodes that's going to get us more attack. I personally go towards more defense when it's an offer, but that's just my personal preference. As I mentioned, the +20 speed node isn't really relevant, so you can stop Whack at +19 there, which is the final attack node on his chain. So that is what an attack path would look like. If you were to go the route of a defense path, I don't think I've got one available, so I'll just make one on Tamika here. If you were to go that defense HP route, it would sort of be more or less the opposite. I would still be picking up defense over HP, just me personally. So we're looking like a very, a graph that looks like that. Again, +19 you can grab because it's attack node. The other side of the +19 is not really relevant, being bonus healing. But if you were to follow that defense HP node, that is much more what it would look like. Oops, did that wrong. Alright, so that would be what the path would look like if you were to follow a defense and HP route. As I said, the argument can be made to go either way. More attack means more damage, more defense HP means more survival. Cool, alright, so let's head back to the portal and do some more scrolling, and then we can take a look at his special skill when we get there. So his special skill is titled Headbash Swing, and at level 10 skill, and 60 charge speed, sorry I'm multitasking, it will deal 320% damage to the target and nearby enemies, and will deal an additional 125% damage against armored enemies. It will then apply an ailment to the target and nearby enemies, which increases the damage they receive from the strong element by +30% for 4 turns. It will also apply a -39% defense debuff to the target and nearby enemies for 4 turns. And finally, it will dispel or remove buffs from the target and nearby enemies. So quite a bit going on there, as is the case with a lot of these Season 2 heroes, or the newer Season 2 heroes. So let's have a look at each of those elements, starting with the direct damage component. So damage, while it's easy enough to calculate for simplicity and comparability, I compare heroes based on their attack power, which removes the variability from the defense calculation. So what that is it's basically their attack stat multiplied by the percentage in their special skill, and then normalized against their speed or their charge tiles to charge their skill. So in the case of Whack, we can see he comes out there with a attack power per tile of 287, which is very good. I mean, it sits there at number 1 of the green DOA 3 hitters in the game. In fact, it is one of the best in the game. You know, it's number 3 in all of the DOA 3 hitters across all the elements. You've only got Spite at 296 and Fungi Beats at 281 that are higher than them, and then there's Whack in number 3 spot. Following on from that is Thunk at 251. So yeah, very good option, particularly when you consider some of those other ones in there. You know, there's a sizable step between, you know, Whack and some of the ones lower down. Like you've got Emerald at 219, who's a little bit newer than Whack. You've got Variant Dasher at 184. Normal dash are at 150, Mev and R you're at 138, and Hair wears base damage at 84. So quite a step up to that 287. And then an even higher step when you factor in the bonus damage against armor. So that drops him even higher up to 400 attack power per tile, which is like out and out the best DOA 3 at that point. Like Spite was 296 as the next best option. So very good hitter, very good damage dealer, and that's without factoring in all the rest of his things. So, you know, that is mostly a combination of his high attack stat with a reasonable percentage in his skill, and then, you know, coupled with only 9 tiles to charge. It does make him quite a powerful damage dealing hero. Moving on from just the damage element, so the next part of his skill is the increased strong damage. So the target and nearby enemies receive plus 30% damage for 4 turns when hit by a stronger element. So generally speaking, this is a very, very powerful effect in color stacking situations. So 30% is calculated against the final damage number. So once all the stat modifiers, the RNG and everything like that is all factored in, it will then apply a 1.3 multiplier to the final damage number that gets calculated. Notably, it only applies to strong element damage, so it will only apply to things like red damage against green enemies, or in the case of Whack, it'll be the green damage against blue enemies. There are a lot of uses for this. You know, you can use it in war and raid situations and all of that, but the most powerful situation for this is actually going to be in war machines, because it gives you a flat increase of 30% damage against war machines, straight up. So instead of your green tiles doing 4,000 damage against a bloom war machine, instead they're going to be doing 5.2 thousand damage. So quite a nice little increase there, particularly because it is the final damage number that gets calculated against. So yeah, it does have a lot of uses, even as I said, in the raid and war situations, but you do have to be a bit more situational about where you're targeting in order to make best use of that effect. Whereas war machines, you just like point, shoot, and off you go and keep running. So typically, this sort of damage boosting buff isn't really enough to warrant bringing Whack as an off-color hero against war machines of alternative colors. So, for example, subbing him into a red war machine team in the place of a red team against a green war machine in the place of another red hero. So, usually for that to be worthwhile, then the trade-off of having an additional strong damage hero versus this buff, you'd need to have about a 38 to 40% damage improvement. So typically speaking, this buff is not sufficient to do that. However, Whack is a little bit unique because he also has the defense debuff in his skill, which most of the other instances of this damage increase don't have. So in the case of Whack, the additional damage output, the additional defense debuff on his skill is enough to outweigh the strong color deficit if both of his effects are active and you do not have a defense debuffer in the strong element. So what I mean by that is if you were to take a red war machine team, so red heroes as the example, if you didn't have someone like Sunbeam who's doing a defense debuff in your team, Whack becomes very useful to sub in there because he does both the defense debuff and the damage improvement. But if you've already got a defense dropper in your team, then Whack's not contributing that additional defense debuff because you've already got it present. So Whack can actually be used as an off-color trade hero on war machines of other elements. So a little bit technical there, so hopefully, and a bit confusing ultimately, so hopefully you stayed with me for it. But basically, war machine with this effect, very, very good. Moving on from it, we get to the defense debuff, so I did hint at it. So this is the target and nearby enemies get minus 39% defense for 4 turns. First off, percentage based, so that's really awesome. It means that it will scale further with emblems and power creep and weapons and all of that sort of thing, so that's really good. Percentage based is so much better than the static defense debuffs, which get lost in some of the other improvements in the game. 4-turn duration is the other thing that's really worth pointing out. So most defense debuffs in the game are only 3 turns. So coming in with a 4th turn is effectively already a 33% improvement over some of those other options that you can get. 39% is a little bit of a weird number. It's sort of mid-tier. You get some heroes which do more with like 44%. You've got some that cap out at like 54% debuff. Some are lower, you know, some only give like 20% debuff, some give like 28%. So 39 is kind of like in the middle in the scheme of things, but still very good option. To put it in perspective on as well what the actual effect of the defense debuff is, if we were to run it through our damage calculation and stuff, essentially what the 39% debuff does is it results in a 94% damage improvement. So instead of a tile doing 100 damage, it will do 194 damage, which is very good. Like, that's a massive improvement. And that's all because the defense debuff drops into the denominator in the damage calculation. So it is amplified its effect. So yeah, very good, the defense debuff as well. Final part of his skill is the Dispel, so it removes buffs from the target and nearby enemies. So in the end, there aren't actually too many AoE Dispellers in the game, which makes it actually quite a valuable skill in the scheme of things. So in total, there are only 16 AoE Dispellers who are 5-star heroes. You add another 4 of them if you include all the 4-star heroes as well, so 20 area of effect debuff heroes in the game, or dispel heroes in the game. So 1 in 20 out of like 100 and something odd heroes is, or no, there's more than that. It's like, it'd be close to 200 heroes by this stage. But anyway, one of 20 is very valuable. The big downside for the Dispel on Whack is that, like most of the Dispellers, it's only on enemies that he physically hits. So i.e. he actually has to hit them and then do the Dispel. So the downside to this is that anytime that you target a hero with, you know, like a counter attack or a defense buff that's active, his damage output is unfortunately affected by those buffs, because it goes damage first, then Dispel. So it's not an issue that is unique to Whack. There aren't actually very many heroes in the game at all that are Dispellers that will Dispel without doing damage to their target. So specifically, there are only 5 AoE ones. So you've got Pantera, you've got Thalia, you've got Rex, Ryoko, and Variant Throttle. Those are the only heroes that do an area of effect Dispel without having to hit all of the targets first. So not unique to Whack, but is something that is worth pointing out. So overall, Whack is a very effective and a very versatile hero. He's usable quite probably and honestly in every facet of this game. He has a very high base damage output, which allows him to be operating as a standalone hitter in and of his own right. He's then got some very strong damage buffs that will boost your team damage output, both situational against strong damage, but also generally via the defense debuff. And then finally, he's got the Dispel, which offers support to the rest of the team in war and raids and war defenses and war machines and just about everywhere else. This is where he really shines. Like, he can shine in any team situation. So for Whack's grading, it is pretty high across the board, honestly. So for raid and war attacks, I'm going to give him an A grade. Like, he can do anything in your team other than heal your team up, which is pretty much the only thing he doesn't do at this point. So very good option to include in a war and raid attack team. For the war machines, I'm going to give him an A grade as well. You know, he's got 2 forms of bonus to your war machine team, as well as having a very high attack stat. So good, like a very good option to use on war machines as well. In the event situations, again, another A grade. He's a DOA 3 hitter. He's got high damage output. He's got defense debuff. He kind of does everything for your event competition as well as completion. Again, the only thing he's not doing for you is healing. So you'll have to fill that role some other way. What a shame. In the raid and war defenses, another A grade. I see him probably best suited as a flank, although with his speed, he could very much function in the wing as well. An alternative as well, ultimately, to a Yuumi in the tank position, although a Yuumi does a buff, whereas he does ailments, but still a very good option for your defense team. You could really slot him in anywhere, but I would ideally put him as the left flank position, so position number 2. In the 3 tournament settings, so we've got Bloody Battles up front. He's not affected by the healing or the lack of healing. So again, an A grade on attack and an A grade on defense. In our buff booster tournament setup, so in this one, he's not really doing any buffs out to himself or his allies, but what he does do is he's got the Dispel, which is very powerful. So on the buff boosters, I'm going to bump him up slightly, if that's possible. So I'm going to give him an A+ on attack and an A+ on defense because of that Dispel that he's got going. As I said, a bit of a rarity in the scheme of things. And finally, we have the Charge Attack tournament. So his speed is improved from 60 up to 65. Unfortunately, it does mean that he can't get the speed break because there is only a +6 gun in this tournament setup. So you would have to get the speed node for that or just have another hacker family member. But anyway, I'm going to keep him at an A grade for charge tournament attack and an A grade for charge tournament defense. So overall, that comes out as being a very respectable, very solid A grade for attack and an A grade for defense. Although, I mean, one could, and I'm very much sure someone will, argue that his grades could be much higher. But he is a very, very versatile hero, which is a bit of a rarity in the game. So yeah, that concludes the content that I have as this review of Whack. As always, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on these heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback on them, so please do drop down to the comment section of the video, leave me a note. I try to read it and respond to as many of you as I can. If you did enjoy this video and found it to be good, useful, helpful, and all of that, feel free to like it, subscribe to the channel, and all of that sort of thing. But most importantly, share the video around, because if this sort of thing is useful for yourself, chances are it's also going to be useful to the people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me. I do hope that I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers. Bye.